Hello. In the previous video, we talked about margins and we demonstrated how margins are often already on the P element, the H1 element, and the body element. So I've applied my own margins to those three elements here, and now we're going to talk about padding. And in order to illustrate padding very clearly, I am going to put a background color onto the P elements on this page. So I'll save my CSS and I'll reload, and now you can see each P element, its margins are outside the color area. So once you've got a background on these elements, you see how crowded the content is. It's practically touching the left and right sides, the top and the bottom. So it doesn't look pleasant. So if you wanted to add some air, some space, some breathing room to these P elements, what you would do is put in padding on those P elements. And if I want the same amount on all four sides, I would just put one number. And since we're using pixels, let's stick with that for now to demonstrate. So I'll save and I'll reload, and now you see where padding is. Padding is on the inside of the element, whereas margin is on the outside of the element. Now, if I wanted to have the left and right sides have more padding than the top and bottom, I could add another number after the 20 pixels. So let's double it just to make it really obvious. And reload. Great, so now my left and right are a bit more than my top and bottom. And this blue space in between the paragraphs, between the paragraph and the image, between the image and the next paragraph, that blue space is margin. But you might be thinking this looks sort of stupid. You might be thinking I would not style a page where I put every paragraph in a little box, right? So how would you style a page? You might want the article to be set off from the background. And so to demonstrate that, I am going to take off the background and padding that we just put on to the P elements, save, reload, back to this, and instead I'm going to go into my HTML and I am going to add an article element surrounding this entire article. So I start with article after body. Of course, it has to be inside the body because it's on the page, so it's got to be inside. And then I close the article element, and that also has to be before the body closes. So I save this. Now, if I were to reload, there'd be no change at all. And I'll do that to prove it, right? Okay. So the article actually changed the H1 appearance because apparently the Chrome browser has a style built in for an H1 that's inside an article. So let's go back here and let's make my font size be a little bigger. I think I'll use rims for this. Here, let's see what that does. Yeah, okay. So I've got an article now, and I can add a new CSS rule for the selector article. Article. If I spell it right, it will be the same color as the others. There we go. And I'm going to put in the same background color and the same padding numbers that I had for the P elements just a moment ago. So I save and reload, and how is that different? Well, now it's all one thing instead of a lot of little boxes, right? Because the article element is one thing. But I have applied the background color to the entire article element, and I've applied that padding of 20 pixels on the top and the bottom and 40 pixels on the left and the right. Now I might look at this and say, you know, I'm not really so crazy about that 20 pixels now. Maybe I want to make all four sides 40 pixels. Reload. Have a bigger margin on the top and the bottom within the article element. You might ask yourself, can I put padding on an image? The answer is yes, you can. So let's put some padding on. This would affect all images on the page, but I only have one, so we'll see it on that one. So 20 pixels, all four sides, and if I reload, you'll see that the sides of this picture of baby Florida Panthers has extra space around it. If I made that a lot bigger, you'd see that the space would get, of course, bigger. So let's put that back to 20. The next question you should be asking yourself is, well, what would be the difference between margin and padding in this case? Is it just as good to use padding or margin? Well, it's a good question. Let's put a background on the image and see what happens. When you have a background color and padding, you will be able to see that color around the edges that you've put padding on. But if I change padding to margin, remember margin is on the outside, save, reload, the image stays at the same place. The space on the top, right, bottom, and left is the same 20 pixels. But when it's margin, it's outside the element. When it's outside, then the background color is not visible. The background color is going to be visible if you use padding, not if you use margin. Save, reload, margin, save, reload. Now at this point, some of you might be thinking, oh, isn't that nice? Now the image is centered within the white area of the article. But remember, this browser has been squashed. It's been made narrow. So if I take the window out to its full size, you'll see that the image has not been centered. Now, a common mistake for beginners is to say, well, if I just make those margins bigger on that image, maybe I'll make it, like 100 pixels or something like that. And they fiddle around with this, trying to get the image to be perfectly in the center. And maybe for the first top and bottom, they put 0, and they start fooling around with this. This is completely wrong, because when the window is any other size, it's not going to be centered. It's going to be messed up. So that is not the way to center an image. How do we center an image? We center it with margins. Very true. Margins, good. But not by using pixels or ems or percent or anything else. What we do to center an image, a div, an article, anything at all, we put auto. The answer is auto for the left and right sides of the element. But this only works if the element is a block element. So article, section, div, nav, HP, all those, they are all blocks by default. But remember, IMG is inline by default. Are we stuck not being able to center our images? No, we're not stuck. We can use the display property to change an inline image to a block. And what I've just shown you is the perfect way to center any element that you need to center. You make sure it's display block. If it's already blocked, don't put that. It's already okay. But images, you have to write that. The margin can be either 0 auto or just auto. And it doesn't need a background. That's not going to be making any difference anymore. Okay, and let's go and reload. And let's change the size of our browser window. And you'll see how that image is perfectly centered no matter what. Now we still have an issue if the window is too narrow, and this would happen on a mobile device. Ooh, what's happening there to that image? We will deal with that in another video after this one. But for now, you've got perfect centering whenever you want by using margin auto. Oh, and let me show you without the zero, it'll be exactly the same in this case because the top and bottom margins are being affected by the P elements, so they don't change when we take out the zero. So this is the end of our padding video, and next we're going to talk about borders.